I'm Father Joseph Mary Sebunya, the patron of the Association of St. Joseph in the Kampala Archdiocese. Today, we are here in St. Joseph KATABI Parish, Entebbe Parish, celebrating their day. As you know, St. Joseph has two major feast days. The 19th of March, we normally celebrate St. Joseph, patron of the family and patron of the Universal Church. On this day, on the 1st of May, we celebrate St. Joseph, who is the patron of workers. And this day is very important. It has a history, by the way. It began with what now we know as Industrial Revolution, where families had to be separated because people had to spend long hours at work, at times earning very little. So those of you remember church the history in the 18th century, 19th century, there were revolts and strikes at work, people fighting for their rights. So the communist movement almost took over this movement, which was fairly fighting for justice, because people were working long hours. Women were not being paid equal pay as men, although they were working equal long hours. And then there was danger at work. There were accidents, people were not paid, there were no insurances. So people organized themselves into trade unions. Now, these began agitating for the rights of the workers. Now, as they rolled on, a political movement, which we know as communism, took charge of these movements and almost took advantage that convincing people that the church was part of the oppressors. Now, what was the church doing? The church's role is to defend justice. And the Holy Fathers, right from Pope Leo XIII, all the popes from the 19th century up to the present day, have always given guidance. But one of the most instrumental ones was Rerum Novarum, about the new things in the church, how the church was to relate with the modern world, including development. And one of the key points there was, let's look at work, because work had become commercialized. And when you commercialize something, the risk is exploitation. So the rich ones, the few rich people, were exploiting the many low-income earning people. So the church called for a balance. One, because people were making revolts and burning factories. There was chaos, there was lack of production, and it was counterproductive, because in Uganda we say, if you destroy the workplace where you're working because you are annoyed, because you're unfairly treated, even the little you have, you can't have it. So the church said, let's look at work once again, not as a tool of economics, not as a means of earning a living, but first of all, as a vocation. So the Holy Father wrote a lot of good messages saying, first of all, work is not a punishment. If you look at Genesis chapter 1, at creation, chapter 2, God says, take charge of the world, multiply, be fruitful, govern the world, and subdue it. That is a vocation for all Christians. We read the Bible, we know God gave us the mandate to work. From our work, we earn what to eat. So we should not be enslaved by our work, nor enslaved by our employers. But both employees and employers should work together to make sure that the society is developed. Now we have an opportunity in our time of technology, of industrial development. So when we work together, if you are alone, you may not have the resources and means to bring about this fast development. But if you're in a company, someone has some money, some income, together we can develop the world. Now this is the history. So when it came to 1955, Pope Pius V asked that this day, so the 12th, Pope Pius XII, asked that this day becomes the day of work, not a labor's day, labor's unions, where people come demonstrate and celebrate their rights and victories over oppression, but also reflecting on what work is really. So that's why, to give it a patron, he looked at nowhere else other than St. Joseph, who is the patron of the workers. When reading the Gospel of St. Matthew, which we read on 1st of May, there was that kind of statement. Who is this man making miracles? Jesus? Is not Jesus the son of a carpenter? That kind of derogatory statement said a lot about St. Joseph. Of course, we know that being a carpenter, or an artisan for that matter, was not very lucrative, not very popular, not very famous. It wasn't among the top jobs that you could do in society. But if you do it well, people would know you by your work. So people knew St. Joseph because he was a good carpenter. And you can imagine from Bethsaida all the way from Galilee, Nazareth, if people knew him as the carpenter of Nazareth, they must have used his services. And so St. Pius XII said, let's look at this model of the work. One, he worked in the family and for the family. In a time when you work separates families. People go abroad, people go to Kubachi in Dubai, people go to towns. Families are kept apart because of work to sustain the family. And the Pope says, it's okay to work. Do whatever you want, you can. But mind you, what are you working for? Are you working to earn money or to support this family? So he calls us to preaching of St. Joseph, who both worked and at the same time raised the family from the little income. And that's the point, that work, to be meaningful, doesn't have to be overpaid or highly paid. You know, every time I go to schools these days, I love asking young people, what do you want to do after school? They have the top 5 jobs. I want to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, business person, and nowadays they even put artist because they know artists are very rich. And when I ask them deeply, why do you want to do that job? Says, well, because I want to have a good life and have money, which is okay. But then we have to look at the purpose of work. It's not all about earning money. Otherwise, some jobs and professions are going to risk having nobody doing them. Who is going to do the plumbing? Who is going to do the policeman? Who is going to keep our security? So if all we do is to get much money and be happy and work less, who is going to dig to grow food for us? So, like St. Paul says, the jobs that we normally underlook are very important. And Pope Francis is very particular about this. Remember in the letter about St. Joseph, on the time of epidemic, he gave an introduction and said, the COVID pandemic gave us an opportunity to know what's the important work. Because the government declared that those who are doing essential work should keep on working. All the rest should stay home. And it was surprising to see who are actually the essential workers, those without whom this nation, this country cannot go on. It was on the pilots, it was on the engineers. Okay, they kept building some stuff, but the MPs, the officers were all told stay at home, and said the key workers were the sewage people, were the nurses, security people, healthcare workers, and farmers. And so that helps us to rethink and says we should not rate work in as much as how much we get, because if you do that, then work is going to become inhuman. So the one who is paying you will employ you to do inhuman things. And so we want to pray. So on this day of St. Joseph, the worker who is the patron of all this month, which is assigned to him as St. Joseph's month, we take the moment to look at this man of Nazareth. First of all, a humble servant, a faithful, hard-working, but humble servant. That's what God expects of our work, from our work. And 2, that whatever we do, St. Paul in the letter to Colossians chapter 3 says, whatever you do, do it like it comes from the hands of God, not from your brains, because you studied. This is my profession, I studied for it. Yes, you studied, but who gave you that intellect? Who put you in that position of authority? As a political leader, as a civil leader, as a civil servant, as a service provider. Can you look beyond the money, beyond your brains, beyond the occupation and the status you have, and see God in your work? That's the purpose of this month and St. Joseph, that we look at God as the author of work, who is going to reward us at the end of the day. Remember the parable of the talents? It says, come bring the talents you got. We don't have enough the same kind of work or training or opportunity to work, but wherever you are, the Lord has given us a talent. May we use it usefully, profitably, and faithfully before God, asking St. Joseph to intercede for us. All our work, pray for St. Joseph, and may St. Joseph bless you, our dear workers, especially those who do work that's not very valued, not estimable, but very important to society. Our cooks, our housekeeping moms, you are doing a great job. Sometimes people say, my mother is a stay-home mom, she doesn't work. You're actually a worker for the family and in the family. May God bless you. through St. Joseph, patron of workers.